Welcome to my channel. We're going to be building a wine barrel smoker. It's a cold smoker and a hot smoker. So if you have a wine barrel around and you do some smoking and barbecuing, this might be a good project for you. It's a good build to do, and we use it quite often, and it worked out really good. This is a French wine barrel. So the first thing you want to do is measure the diameter of your barrel and take about 25% of that for your cradle. What I found is just a couple of pieces of the 5/8 plywood in the shop, and that's a good sturdy piece. It takes a bit of time to make the base, but it's worth the time. You'll be doing a lot of work on the barrel, sanding it and varnishing it, so take your time. Bandsaw makes for quick work of making the cutouts on it. And then once the plywood was cut, we just gave it a nice smooth sand and found a couple of 2x4s to fasten the cradle together. When you're putting the 2x4s, the spreaders, it's good to bring them up about 3/4 of an inch so it's not going to be rocking on the bottom. The worst thing is when you're trying to take measurements and cutting and the barrel moving around on you. So just raise them up 3/4 of an inch and then fasten them with 3-inch screws. And we plan on doing a couple of things with barrels, so we want to make a good base that would be able to keep and do some other work with it. So hopefully we'll put those projects up for you as well. There's our base all cut out, and we're just going to give them a sand, just smooth them off. I thought that would be good enough if I sanded it smooth enough, but I found after I gave it a first coat of varnish, the wood would scratch the barrel, so I eventually ended up wrapping them with pipe wrap insulation. So there's the base there with the 2x4s. You see that it's good and solid, and the 2x4s are up about 3/4 of an inch. And we'll take that out and try it on the barrel, see how it works. But it should cradle the barrel quite well and stop it from moving about as you're taking off the rings and sanding. There's there, you can see the 2x4s on the bottom are raised up a bit, and that makes for a really stable platform. And that's what you're going to want. On the barrel rings, hoops, they have an L nail that holds in the hoop, and you want to take those off. The best tool to use is just a side cutter and pull them out. They're sharp little things, so take your time and be careful. And once you get all those out, you can slide off the hoops. Leave on the top and the bottom of the barrel. Don't take them off. Just take the 3 that are in between, or the 4. There's my helper, Coach. She wants to go to the beach. She's got to wait. So we just took those off and got it prepped for sanding. It just makes it so much easier. And you can see how the barrel cradles in quite nicely as you can do your work on it. So we'll give that a sand and get ready to put a spar varnish coat on it. There it is the next day. I saved you from watching the sanding. It's pretty mundane. So we do have a coat of spar varnish on it, and now we're just doing the intake for the cold smoke. What I've used here is just a piece of stovepipe. It's an older piece I had around the shop. Just marking it out and making the front of it flush with the barrel. And I wanted the front to be where the bong is, so you'll see those 3 pop rivets. They're usually in the front of the barrel all the way down. So we're just cutting a 6-inch hole here. That was a 6-inch pipe with a 90 on it. And you want to put the male end into the barrel when you fasten it, so that we can put an extension pipe on the outside. And hang on to your jigsaw. It's the best tool to use for this. It's going to bounce around a bit. the oak in the barrels are quite hard. So, but there's our hole, and we'll just fit that with our inlet. There it is there. You see it goes in nicely and it's flush with the front. And you can see the bong hole there in the center. So that will be the front of the smoker, and that's the bottom that you're looking at. So we're just getting that all prepped to go in. What we'll do is just cut a couple of flanges out of the insert of the pipe. And we also fasten, once we push the barrel hoops back down, fasten them with a number 10 hex head screw. And we just laid a piece of 2x4 across the top here and a piece of sacrificial plywood. And what we're doing is taking our angle for our legs off the bottom of the barrel. So what we want to do is use this as a template. And there it is there. After it's been scribed, we've scribed it, and that's going to give us a really nice pattern for our legs. So our legs will be going up that high on the barrel, and then from the bottom up we'll be raising the barrel up 12 inches off the ground, and but that will give us a really nice we found some nice edge grain fur that we're going to use, and if you notice they're a little bit longer than the pattern on the legs. The barrels can be raised up 12 inches above the ground. So there's the template that we end up cutting out as our pattern. So we've laid that out on the wood. And the wood's 3 inches wide by 1.5 inches thick. So we're taking it to the bandsaw here, and we're just going to cut them out. We've measured them and marked them with our template. Marked all 4 of them, and then we'll just chop them out. We've also decided we're going to taper the outside of the legs as well. They'll be a little bit more refined, so there'll be after they're fitted though. The important thing is to make sure that they fit well, and what we'll do is we'll fasten them to the barrel, and then decide our outside taper and shape, and then we'll give them final sand. And what I've also done too is that we'll coat them with spar varnish before we install them on the barrel. But take your time cutting them out. If you don't have a bandsaw, you can use a jigsaw. They're there, they've been all cut out, and we've checked them on the barrel and checked them against the template. And on the area where you cut out, what we've done too is we've numbered them all as well as 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when you're placing them on the barrel, right on top of the barrel, the corresponding numbers, and then when you're taking the legs off and on, you'll know exactly where they're going. And then we just put a screw at the top of the rim. When we laid them up, we fastened them to the barrel and put a screw on the top of the rim to screw them in as a temporary screw, and then we'll take them off again, but that'll give us placement of them. Here we are just sanding off the inside to the line, just so that they fit nice and snug. And if you don't have one of these sanders, just use a belt sander or even hand sanding. It's important to take your time on this because you want a nice tight fit on the barrel so they don't rock around. And barrels are quite heavy when you're moving them around. And so they're there as a dry fit. If you notice, we just used a washer head screw in the top to temporarily fasten them. There's our detail cut of the leg. So it has a nice taper, and we've sanded them all, and they've all been coated. That's one coat of exterior clear. So they're all ready to install. So before we turn the barrel upside down, we just want to make sure that everything fits good in the bottom. And we've inverted the barrel, and we'll put a straight edge across. And what we're doing here is measuring our depth from the ring to the top of the barrel, and then I'll cut a block. And the block will be used as an offset block for the piece that comes off the saw. And what I've done is cut a block and then put some packing tape on it so it'll glide smoothly. You want it to move along nicely on top of the barrel because we're going to fasten that to the spacer block on the saw. The spacer block is set up on the guide. You'll see most saws come with a guide, a rip fence guide. So I've just screwed the rip fence guide to a piece of wood, cut the block, and then we'll mount the block to the piece of wood, and I'll show you how we cut off the top. This seems to be the easiest, and there's the packing tape, so it runs really nice and smooth. Slides under the 2x4. We'll just fasten that on to the block, and I imagine a lot of people are interested in this, so I took my time showing you. I've seen all kinds of different ways of cutting the top off barrels. This seems to work very good, so and I'd use it again. I didn't spend too much time on building this jig because it's one-time use, but you could spend more time and build it out of plywood. But this works. You just fasten that down solid. You don't want it to move around when you're cutting it, because you have to pull up the fence and wire your fence open on your saw, so you're not fighting that. So, but there it goes like that, and then I'll put another block underneath where the saw is mounted to the rip fence. I just want to stabilize that saw a little bit more, so I'll cut another block and put it underneath there between the plate of the saw. There it is there, and that will rest tight up against the barrel, and then the offset on top. So you just put some pressure down on top of the barrel and measure where you want to go. I want to go about a 1/4 inch below the rim. And I took the screws out in case they're in the way, and you just glide that around. And I was quite happy with the cut that came out. It worked quite well. Easy, you're standing up, you're not fighting the barrel, so the barrel is just sitting on the base, and you walk all the way around with that. You can see I've wired up the fence, so be careful if you do this. You do have a live blade. And this is the way that I did it. This isn't an instruction. There it is there sitting in. See, nice smooth cut all the way around. And it's ready to continue on the rest of the work. But yeah, nobody's seen the inside of that barrel for a while. Had to check for mice. It's outside for 4 or 5 years. Love the woodwork that they use on the barrel. 1/4 sawn oak. So whenever I sanded it off, I didn't want to sand all the patina off of it. Leave some of the color on it. It's just beautiful. All that 1/4 sawn. So wish I could find some of that to build some furniture. But so what I'll do is put a piece of tape to mark the front of the top all the way down, because you'll be taking the lid off and on quite often. And so you'll notice on this barrel they have 3 pop rivets, or rivets, and they go all the way down. And when I put the hoops back on, I made sure everything was all lined up, and so that it looks symmetrical. But just make a bit of a cut there, so when you take the top back off, and then just line up your tapes.